Welcome back to On the Record. I'm Robert Cohen, and I'm here with Bill Taylor, who started, I guess, the thing that most people know you for is Fast Company. Welcome to the show.
Great to see you. Thank you very much. That's my modest claim to fame, I suppose.
Modest, but well, you've got a few claims to fame, so we'll take that one as
Sure,
well.
sure.
So, overall, like, why did you end up? How did it come about that you went in and started Fast Company?
Well, my co-founder and I, a guy named Alan Weber, were editors at the Harvard Business Review. And we both really believed in the power of ideas to shape the conversation about where business could and should be going. We really believed that it was possible to create almost, not just publish articles, but to create a curriculum of sorts to teach people to think bigger, to aim higher, to define what it means to be a successful business person, a successful executive, a successful entrepreneur. And we were doing that through the pages of the Harvard Business Review. But what occurred to us in the mid-90s, and the first issue of Fast Company launched in November of 1995, was that in so many ways, the world of business was experiencing such deep-seated transformations. What companies could look like, what economic business models could be built, but maybe more than anything, what individuals themselves wanted to get out of their business life, the kinds of organizations they wanted to be part of, the kinds of careers they wanted to have. And so we really felt like we were almost in a reset moment for the business culture and really called out for a new magazine born in that era, not something that was born in the 1920s and the 1930s, which is when Business Week launched and Fortune launched and the Harvard Business Review launched, but rather a business magazine born in this new world of competition and technology and organizational life and new thinking about success. And we decided we would just start from scratch with the proverbial blank sheet of paper and ask ourselves, what would a magazine that was a voice of that generation, what would it be like, what would it look like, how would it behave, and thus was born Fast Company.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember right back from, maybe it was even your first issue, might have been the second issue, but I remember people coming into my office and saying to me, what do you think of this book? Opening it up and going, it's probably going to be, a few good stories. And, being in the publishing business and being a professor similar to you and in business for so long, I just figured, okay, well, it'd be like every other new publication out there that, you'll have, for 5 or 6 or 7 issues, you can put a lot of content in there and it'll look great. And then I figured after that you would taper out. That hasn't happened yet.
Now, it sounded silly at the time, but what we said in the very beginning is a couple things. First of all, what we said is, we're not starting a magazine, we're trying to launch a movement. A movement of like-minded people around the world who really look to business and their work not just as a way to pay the bills or put food at the table, but really as a way to define who they are, what they cared about, the kind of impact they wanted to have. And in that sense, we really wanted Fast Company to be a passion brand or a badge of affiliation. You're not just reading the articles because you're learning something, like we certainly hope you are, but because they speak to how you make sense of the world, what you care about. And really in 15 years, it really has become that. It's a passion brand. People feel connected to the magazine and connected to each other by virtue of their shared interest in the magazine. When things got so crazy in the early 2000s, there were Fast Company clubs all in 200 different cities around the world. We called it the Company of Friends. And people would meet every month. They'd take over a restaurant or take over a bar, and they'd agree before, and let's all read the cover story and we'll discuss it. Or, hey, we're in Helsinki and Fast Company just wrote about this cool entrepreneur in Helsinki. We'll invite that person to come speak to our group. And it became this kind of almost alternative chamber of commerce. And it really was, in that sense, a movement. The other thing we said was we don't just want to publish articles. We want to think of itself as kind of a business school between covers. And we really want to not just entertain people, but really help teach people about both being inspired by new ideas, but then putting those ideas to work. And so we wanted to create a curriculum, not just publish articles. And I think people have over the years really sensed that we're in the game for a different reason than a lot of magazines. And we really are in the game to teach, to instruct. I mean, you know, I like to watch people reading Fast Company on airplanes and stuff, you know, when they don't know I'm there. And you sense that, you know, whether it's literally using a highlighter or they're ripping out pages. And to me, that's the definition of success for the magazine. Saying, you know, I'm actually going to put this to work in my career, in my life, the next time I have a meeting or what have you. And so I think that sense that we define our success by the kind of impact we're having to make our readers more successful in their work and in their life. And in that sense, we have a very clear sense of what value are we adding to our readers, which is why I think we've kind of stuck around for as long as we have.
Do you think Fast Company in ways is similar to companies like Virgin or Apple in the way that it's almost like a cult? And I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I understand. I certainly wouldn't be so bold as to compare ourselves to those mega world-shaping brands, but in the sense that from day one, we brought to the marketplace and the conversation of ideas a sense that there was really a bigger purpose behind what we were doing. And we weren't just trying to occupy one more notch on a newsstand with 1,800 different titles that you could choose from, but there was a sense that we existed in order to have an impact, you know, modest impact, I'll grant you, but an impact in the world. We had a point of view. I think all really great brands that get people excited, whether it's Apple or Virgin or, you know, Dior in the world of fashion, there is a very clear point of view. The brand, the company, in our case the magazine, believes in something. I mean, you know, I often tell and told our writers, we do journalism, but we do kind of advocacy journalism. Not advocacy in the sense of a political party or political point of view, but we are advocating for a certain approach to business that combines enjoying commercial success and creating wealth with saying, well, the best way to do that is with a set of human values and a values proposition that is true to what you care about as a human being. We want people to be as successful as we can be, but we encourage people to ask deep-seated questions about what does success mean to you exactly, and what do you want your impact to be, and what you want your legacy to be. And so we have a very, and I've always had a very clear point of view about what we think, not what business is, but what it could be and what it should be. And I think that's true of all really kind of great brands or really distinctive brands. It's not just about the technical excellence with what you do think. It's the point of view you bring to the world. So in that sense, in a modest way, I think we're kind of similar to those brands.
Yeah, I would think so. There was a whole bunch of people who jumped on board, and I won't bother with names, but tried to imitate you.
Yes, absolutely.
Immediately. It was very strange to watch how they all moved up at first and then just sort of.
Well, it's funny, if you go back to the 15 years, the two founding properties in the space were Wired and Fast Company. And then a million other titles came to the fore.
Yep.
And if you look at today, the only two left are Wired and Fast Company. Everybody else is gone. And I think it's fundamentally because we focus on different things, we have a different point of view, but both of us came to this with an authentic sense that something big and new was going on in the world. We wanted to be voices that chronicled it, that championed it, that kind of became platforms for developing it. And then everybody else came up and, wow, there are a lot of advertisers in those magazines. Let's create some editorial. We got a bunch of advertisers in there. There was no authenticity to it. They saw an economic opening and they took it. We and Wired came to this with a much, I think, deeper and richer sense of purpose. So it's no surprise to me that things went up, things went down, and we're both not just surviving, but really prospering quite nicely. So
sort of, it's what comes first, the advertising or the editorial. And you definitely started with the editorial good push on the editorial, and that's,
And a sense that, and I think it's certainly true of Wired, we wanted to be a rallying point for people. We wanted to be a place, a magazine people could read, but also a brand that people could look to say, hey, you speak to me, but in a weird way you also speak for me. And you become, we said early on, it was silly, but people understood is that when we started Fast Company, we said we wanted to take Harvard Business Review and Rolling Stone, put them in a blender, hit mix, and that's what we were. In the sense that HBR, we're very serious about business, very serious about the power of ideas and thought leadership. But Rolling Stone in its heyday, we really did kind of want to be the voice of a generation. And I think we emerged as the voice of not the internet generation, not the .com, but a generation of business people who basically said, look, if we're spending 50 or 60 hours a week at work, we want that work to mean something. We want that work to matter to us. We want that work to matter to the world. We were the voice of a group of people who kind of had higher aspirations than maybe their parents had for what business and work was all about. And you can't really fake that. I think people do. People may agree with it, disagree with it, think articles are good or bad, but I don't think people ever impugn our motives and don't think that we're serious about saying this is why the magazine exists. And I think the same goes for Wired in a more digital culture way.
yeah. So the only thing you don't have over Rolling Stones is Nobody Did That Song About You Yet.
No, not yet.
Not
But
yet.
we're still working on that.
I got a few people that
There
have
you
great
go.
songs
There
on.
you
I'll
go.
introduce you.
Actually, it's never been. Barry Blett, the great illustrator, I remember early on, did some great cartoons for us, and he is a wonderful musician, and he did write a song about if you're Fast Company, why are you so slow to pay your bills? But that's life in a startup all the time, so it's quite a good song.
But now you
Didn't make the top. We pay our bills. Didn't make the top 40.
Okay, so